friend to sit by on holiday, a bounteous source of food, or something to use for sports. But when some of its waters become airborne as fog, it can be a deadly enemy. Now here's a story of boys' own paper heroism, the kind of courageous act that had newspaper boys shouting, "Read all about it" from the curbside. This gentleman was a hero at just 20. And the man of the hour was 20-year-old Ronald Ferguson, chief wireless operator on board the 14,000-ton Canadian Pacific liner Empress of Ireland. As the liner picked its way through thick fog on the St. Lawrence Seaway, Canada, it was struck by a freighter and sank within 14 minutes. More than 1,000 of the 1,477 people on board perished in the icy water, and the death toll would have been higher had it not been for Ferguson, who continued to send out a distress signal. He sent out the distress until the ship's increasing list caused acid to run out of his emergency batteries, said his son Hugh Ferguson in tribute to his late father. His father, who had 5 sons, went to live near one of them in Letchworth in Hertfordshire with his wife, Joan, then aged 82, who sadly died soon after the move. Mr. Hugh Ferguson said, "It's quite amazing that father survived the sinking and went on to reach a ripe old age. He certainly had a good sense for timing. By staying on board and sending out the SOS, he delayed plunging into the icy waters, and yet, if he'd stayed just a few seconds more, he would have been sucked under." As the liner went down, he slowly tapped out the distress and the ship's position because he knew the only wireless operators on shore would be amateurs. When the liner heeled over 45 degrees and more, he continued to tap out his distress signal while standing on the bulkhead with water coming in at the rate of 236 tons a second. As she sank, he was thrown free and rescued by one of the vessels he had managed to call up. On board the rescue ship, literally dripping wet, he proceeded to coordinate the rescue by wireless. His level-headed action undoubtedly saved many lives and earned the commendation from Lord Mersey, the chairman of the inquiry, who said, "You did great credit to the service that you are in." Although if you read the transcript from the inquiry itself, you would believe, due to the conflicting evidence of the two captains, that the ships had violently collided whilst being stationary 2 miles apart. Ferguson was awarded the OBE later in life, went on to a distinguished career in marine radio and broadcasting, spanning nearly 60 years. The company's youngest wireless operator. When the First World War started, Ferguson helped recruit wireless operators for the Royal Flying Corps to relay from the air to artillery batteries in France the location of potential targets. In May 1915, he was stationed with the No. 5 Squadron of the RFC near Ypres, and after 9 months moved to 18 Squadron near the Somme. Injured twice, he returned to Southern and Western Brigade headquarters in Cirencester, where he lectured on artillery cooperation under Stuffy Dowding. With the United States now in the war, he was promoted to captain and sent in December 1917 to New York on a British aviation mission to train officers for the US Flying Corps. For this work, he received the Aero Club of America's Award of Merit. After the war, Ferguson joined the new radio communications company, successfully establishing a marine radio side to the business in Liverpool and becoming general manager. But broadcasting was now offering a potential new market for manufacturers, and his company was one of the 6 which established the BBC, then the British Broadcasting Company, and appointed John, later Lord Reith, as its general manager in 1922. As Vice President of the National Association of Radio Manufacturers and traders in charge of liaison with the BBC, Ferguson was closely involved with broadcasting's early development. With mounting international tension, however, the British government had encouraged Marconi to insist on a 10-year operating agreement in order to ensure that such a Middle East microphone should be in British hands, so Ferguson stayed on for several years longer than that. Among his achievements was the ESB's historic broadcast of the playing of the trumpets from Tutankhamun's tomb, which was relayed throughout the world and is believed by superstitious folk to have provoked the Second World War. As anticipated, his position proved crucial throughout the war. Whilst respecting Egypt's neutrality, he played host to many of the Allied leaders who broadcast on ESB and was also chief broadcasting censor. For his services in Cairo, he was appointed OBE of the Nile. After the war, Ferguson returned to the Marconi Marine Company, becoming general manager in 1947 and managing director from 1959 until he retired in 1961, although he continued as a director until 1967. He was chairman of the International Radio Marine Associated Companies Conference from 1958 to 1970 and honorary life chairman from then. An amateur radio enthusiast all his life, he will be remembered by many through his call sign G4VF. And he never forgot that once it had saved his life.